Next, we are going to one of the best sales leaders out there, my buddy Matt Hough in New York.
Scott, thanks so much. And thanks so much for hosting. It's an absolute pleasure to be here today. Jason, can't thank you enough for your service to our country, of course. So inspiring. Quick shout out. My brother was a Marine, fought in Desert Shield. So I have an unbelievable space in my heart for folks like you. Question on the leadership front, which I've always been fascinated by. Building a high producing team is one challenge, right? When that team is at its apex and it's producing at a high level, what's your advice on keeping that team in that space and making sure they continue to stay there and don't regress? I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
It's kind of like going to the gym, right? And you put, let's say you're bench pressing and you put a certain amount of weights on your bench press and you do it and you get to a level where you're like, man, I'm really producing. I'm at my apex. I'm at 225. Well, to be honest with you, your potential is closer to 400, right? So when you think you're there, you've arrived, you haven't, because you never arrive. You've got to keep pushing yourself. You've got to keep pushing that comfort zone. You got to keep doing hard things or you'll die, right? We got to keep moving forward as people. And so find out what's difficult for those people and push them to achieve it. It's that simple. It really is. And I'll tell you, don't just push them hard. Take time to celebrate the victory. Meaning when I go to the gym, I thought about this a few months ago. People are like, do you like going to the gym? And I'm like, yeah, I do like going to the gym. I find a lot of pleasure and peace going to the gym. Well, then they were like, how? Like, what is it about going to the gym that helps you to feel that way? And they said, is it lifting heavy things? And I thought, like in the act of lifting something heavy, I'm not really enjoying myself. I'm thinking to myself, I can't wait for this to be over. Right. But as soon as I put the weight up and I finish my set, I feel pretty damn good about myself. And part of that is achievement. Part of that is accomplishing something, but a big part of that is breathing. I enjoy breathing at the gym, push myself so that I can look back and see what I've accomplished. And that's how growth occurs. That little moment of rest where you appreciate what you've accomplished. Now, that little moment of rest shouldn't turn into a long moment of rest where you're checking your cell phone and having conversations with people. And then all of a sudden your next set is 20 minutes later because you're really not pushing yourself. As soon as you can get back under that bench or that squat rack or whatever it is for you, the faster you'll be able to accomplish your goals because you're really pushing your limits. And eventually, you'll get to the pinnacle of what a body can endure. But I heard a really interesting story from the Deliberate Discomfort Tribe the other day. It was about belief. It was a study from Harvard where a scientist dropped some rats into a bucket of water. They wanted to see how long the rats could tread water until they gave up and died. And they dropped the rats in the bucket and the rats treaded water for about 15 minutes and they gave up and they started to drown. And the scientists picked the rats out, dried them off, let them rest for a little bit. And then they put the rats back in a second time to see how long they would last. And I'll just throw that out to the group here. How long do you think the rats, and if you know the answer, don't spoil it, but if you don't, how long do you think the rats lasted the second time? Throw that in the chat box. Second time the rats were thrown in the water, how long do you think they lasted? They lasted 15 minutes the first time. 16 minutes, 25 minutes longer, 2 minutes, 2 hours, 20 minutes, hours, an hour. So in reality, the second time the rats were dropped in the water, they treaded water for 60 hours. And the reason they did that is because they believed that someone would go and rescue them as soon as they started to drown. And that's how much stronger your mind is than your body. That's the power of belief. Believing in yourself, believing in the people that believed in you, believing that it'll all work out in the end if you just don't quit. And so I thought that was a really interesting, powerful story. And I'll leave you with that. Like, don't ever think you've arrived, because you haven't. You can always push yourself harder.
That is unbelievable.